Victims of gender-based violence are more likely to get infected with HIV. One research study shows there's a strong link between the two.
That's right. The study, titled Urban and Rural Women's Experience of Intimate Partner Violence, found that a culture that silences women about their sexuality also enables physical violence. To talk more on this, we speak to research author and lecturer in Unisa's Social Work Department, Dr. Goitseone Leburu. Thank you so much, Doc, for your time this morning. To speak a little bit about the correlations, perhaps, between gender-based violence and the prevalence of HIV, I think what becomes more concerning is how many young people between the ages of 15 and 24 are contracting HIV, never mind every single week, but I think the stats are even pointing to every 2 minutes. So when we're looking at that scourge, particularly when it comes to the youth, does it say something about the gender-based violence that is also plaguing not only the older generation, but the younger generation too?
Absolutely, Faith, and good morning to you and Morena, and thank you for having me. So as you've indicated that the interlink between gender-based violence and HIV and AIDS, let me start to say that it's a complex phenomenon that is not linear, but it's recurring. And for one to be able to understand this interlink, unfortunately, we have to separate the two phenomena first, because we still have people not understanding what gender-based violence is. So this means that gender-based violence by itself does not serve as a causative factor for HIV and AIDS, and nor do HIV and AIDS serve as a causative factor for gender-based violence. However, the interlink between these two phenomena, when they come into play, the risk factors of each now reinforces each phenomenon. So then that's when now we can see gender-based violence serving as a risk factor for HIV and AIDS. And with it, it's so complex that it's so multi-layered. It has pockets within, and for one to be able to understand this risk factors we have to unpack each layer one by one, bit by bit.
You know, you speak about how the one would not be a causative factor for the other, where you see gender-based violence doesn't necessarily mean that, it'll be a cause for HIV. For those that are maybe not understanding by that what you mean, just please expound on that and just let us know that, are you basically saying that, for example, with HIV, it could be the cause of consensual sexual engagements that, of course, then results in HIV and not necessarily because of gender-based violence?
Yes, Morena. Look, when we want to unpack these factors, for instance, gender-based violence as a risk factor for HIV and AIDS, we can look at the biological factors which causes one to be at risk for contracting HIV. And also, if we look into the South African context, where we have more rates of gender-based violence against women, and we also have high rates of HIV and AIDS. And the biological factors that makes one to be at risk is that the forced or the coerced sexual practices, which comes as a form of violence, which forms the form of GBV. Actually, when it's forced, when it's coerced, it puts the victim at risk actually of contracting the virus. And also, when you look at the high rates of men raping women, in that instances, then we end up having more women who are who contract HIV and AIDS as a result of experiencing the coerced sex. And then also, we also have the women actually or the people who contract HIV and AIDS as well, and whom after that they are unable to go seek for help because of the stigma attached, because of the discrimination attached to their statuses. And that violence actually is perpetuated by both men and women. And when you also look at the socio-cultural factors, then these are the factors or the things that we do in our homes that actually perpetuate those unequal power relations between boys and girls, which later manifest in unequal power relations between men and women. That's when we can see how men now use force to coerce sex from their female counterparts. And also when you look at the things that we say at weddings, the songs that we sing, Monna ga batle be payslip, borukgo ba monna ke motshetsha, and we also have the proverbs such as Monna ke selepe, wa adimisanwa. So those are the things that we say in our social spaces and that we do in our homes actually, that later then may perpetuate that unequal power relations, which then will lead the perpetrator to use either violence, to inflict pain on the victim or coerce the victim as well into doing things that they do not want for themselves. And we also have other factors such as economic factors, where in the South African context we see that there are most, for instance, women who are not economically dependent, and they depend on their men for survival or their partners for the survival. So in such instances, the dominant partners end up using violence or end up using force, to coerce the victim into unsafe sexual practices. We see women saying, I'm not able to advocate for safe sex. I can't say to my partner today, I don't feel like doing it because he's my partner and he has paid lobola for me, then I have to be available readily for him at any other time. And like I've said, in some instances in the weddings, you'll hear malume or mamalume saying, Motlogolo, you will only be tired on the upper body. Downwards, you don't get tired. And other instances, you'll say malume praising the makodis or praising Mokhonyane, saying, you have brought a beautiful wife to me, my nephew. However, don't hit her on the face. You must hit her between the legs. So those are the things that we say in our homes, in our spaces, in our celebrations, actually, that indirectly condone gender-based violence, which then in turn can end or can lead to one contracting HIV and AIDS, Morena and Faith.
As you're speaking about this, Doc, it almost speaks about how much unlearning and relearning that needs to happen within our societal constructs if we are truly to solve. And as I said, one would have thought that we were really getting ahead of new HIV infections, not even the prevalence of access to drugs and the like, but the new prevalence of HIV infections. And when the statistics are pointing to over 1 million new infections now, right, to take the number to about 8.5 million or so, it speaks significantly to how the things that we are being shared within society, even at weddings, as you mentioned, somehow it's perpetuating even to the younger generation. So if it's getting to the younger generation, are we ever going to solve? Is South Africa ever going to get off the #1 list where HIV prevalence is concerned? Because somehow, the other countries are doing it right, but it looks and sounds as though our societal construct is what hinders us from actually solving this crisis.
Look, Faith, imagine how long does it take for a child to be socialized? It takes many, many, many years. So for us as a South African society to unlearn that, let's target the coming generations, because with us, we've been contaminated already, the generation that is here. And currently we are talking to the people who actually are in a way not aware. Some of them, they're not aware that they are perpetrating, or they are not aware that actually what they are doing is putting people at risk. So for us to unlearn and go back, let's target the kids that are to be socialized or the kids that are yet to be born, and say, let's have programs actually which are intentional on, unlearning this socialized or the practices that have been there in a society for the longest time ever. So then to unlearn that, actually, it's faced with resistance. And it's not intentional, but it's because this is what the person is used to. And this is the only thing that they are used to. So if now you come with your programs and you are not assuring them actually that these programs are not going to take anything from you, but rather they are here to help improve our lives as a society. So we need to do that. And also we need to be culturally sensitive, realizing that people live in different contexts. People, their knowledge is not the same. And we have to actually meet all the people across their, level of understanding and meet them there and talk to the language that actually they understand. You understand? And let's have these engagements as both women and men together with women. They must sit together and they must just have these conversations, open-minded, and let's listen to what is actually bothering the other gender. And now, how then can we, as the two counterparts, then live together? Let's start doing the activities together. The activities actually that promotes unisex, not us and them. Let's have the activities where a man and woman will be both in the kitchen, will be out cleaning, will be out doing the same activities, so that when the kids see them doing those activities, then they will go up with that mindset to say, actually, it's normal for a man to cook. It's normal for a lady to do garden outside. You understand? So if we have that, if we socialize our kids like that, when they grow up, when they are adults, then they will grow up with such mentality, where then there is just sameness.
Most definitely. And this is sometimes where the conversation will start, is on a platform like TV or even radio, where you've got your children and even grown people who are listening and understanding that it is most definitely possible. Dr. Goitseone, we're going to be leaving it there with you. Thank you so much for allowing us, of course, to just speak about such matters that, again, I say, will always need to be, in the public discourse going forward. That is Dr. Goitseone Leburu, of course, from Unisa.